Well, gang, this is the latest piece I'm going to be painting. It's just arrived into the shop. The delivery man just dropped it off. It is a commission piece for a client. And I thought I'd at least show you some of the progress along the way. I mean, all that I've done so far is I taped up the keys. I was thinking I was going to be taping up the hardware, but I've got to be able to paint in here, and I can't tape that up and then open and close it, so I'm going to have to just be careful. I'm going to tape up the feet. The client thought that I'd be painting the back, that it's a smooth back, but it's not a smooth back. It's all open and all the struts are there, and so he's in a meeting waiting to hear what's happening with that. I'm hoping I'm not painting it because it was hard enough cleaning it. I had to get sticks to be able to go through all the struts and things, so yeah, not worth it. But this is the piece that we're doing, and they are not going for a sedate finish. It is going to be multiple tones. It's going to be a little bit grungy, and lots of dark wax afterward and some dark stenciling, and there's a lot going on. They apparently have a really large living room though. I think that he said that they've got a 14-foot couch and a 27-foot ceiling. So a very distinctive, unique finish on this is not going to overwhelm the space, which was my concern originally. So they've got lots of room around it. It's for their daughter. It's going to go in their living room. Join me on this journey. We'll see how it goes. I am just going to finish cleaning it, taping off a couple of things. And then, because this is a really shiny surface, I am not worried about bleed through on this piece at all. It's heavily lacquered, it's really sealed. So I am going to use just a protective coat, clear, just so it's a little less slick. Not because of bleed through, but just so my paint's gonna stick. I got lots of coats to go. Before I get started doing anything else, I am actually taking a sander to this baby, and I'm going to scuff sand the whole thing. It's such a high shiny surface that I just want to increase the durability of the paint. I'm using DIY paints. They stick to just about anything, but it never hurts to give things a bit of a helping hand. I had my first moment on the side when I put this to the shiny surface with because now I'm marring the surface. So I'm not going to make you watch, but the glossy part is going. This piano is going to be a fairly involved process. Involved on my end, one, because it's got a lot of picky surfaces, right? That I have to paint the outside, then the inside, same thing for the lift up top. Also because we are painting it to a customer's specifications. And they have kind of an industrial, grungy, worn kind of vibe going in their living room, in their home. And so this is no exception. Plus they want it to be fairly distinctive. So we are going to be doing a blended finish on it. We're going to be doing some stenciling on it. We're going to be doing lots of dark waxing. There's a lot of stuff to come. But the first step with anything is to get some paint on it. The first step for me was when I took the sander to the glossy surface. I mean, I just wanted a light scuff sanding here and there. My first coat is DIY paint. Oh, and I brought the wrong one. So that's what we're gonna get on here first. I'm actually gonna do 2 coats of crinoline. I have sandy blonde in my hand, so I'm gonna go get the crinoline. And when you next see this, it's going to have those 2 coats. The back of the piano is unfinished, so it's kind of open and all the struts are there. We are just going to paint that a solid color. I don't think they're putting it flush to the wall, so they just want it to be something that blends in with the finish, but isn't the orange that it's currently painted. So we're gonna get the back done and just kind of out of the way. And I'm gonna go get the right color paint and get 2 coats on this baby. Hey there, I just wanted to pop on quickly to say a couple of things about this. This has got its first coat on. It looks rough. It should. You're just looking to put a really light coat on. You want it to adhere to the base, and then your other coats can adhere to this. It's kind of like a crumb coat on a cake. You do that first quick little coating of icing on the cake when you're icing it, so it holds all the crumbs in. Pop it in the fridge, it firms up, so that when you put your next layer on, all the crumbs stay put and you get a nice clean finish. Kind of the same idea. I mean, this obviously as well, you can maybe see the hinges at the top. It was dry enough for me to paint the inside. I will be having to paint this too. I've got the keys all taped off, but I just want a little bit more of this to dry before I do it. So I just wanted to mention about this. My next coat, I am not going to be pushing the paint on and moving it like I did this. I'm going to be laying it on, painting at an angle. And that gets important so that I'm not disturbing that first coat and revealing the base again. So just wanted to show you the ugly stage before I come back. It's got the second coat on and it'll look a lot better at that point. The back is unfinished, but we're not doing a special treatment. We're just going to be painting all the struts out so that it looks all finished. Okay, back to painting. All right, this is the end of day 1. I still have to wait for this to dry and just do the insides, which is a pain. But here's the second coat. Now, you saw how light the first coat was. Small little drip. The second coat goes on heavier. This is not full coverage yet. I used pretty much a full 16-ounce can because I have a little bit left that will do the inside. To do the 2 coats on this, because it was that high gloss super slick black, you would need a 3rd coat, and then you'll have perfect even coverage if you were only leaving it here. So we went from super modern with that high gloss black to a little bit more country here, right? We're not leaving it here, so it's actually going to go dark again. So let me maybe just explain why I went white if I'm going to go dark. I mean, I'm going to be painting bohemian blue, and I am going to have sections of this cream and of the sandy blonde, which is more of a tan, and of a lighter mid-tone blue, along with the bohemian blue and the black. All those colors are going to be on the piano, and they're going to be blended. We're going to be adding maybe some metallics after. It really depends upon the client when they see the piece prior to that, but we're still going to be adding dark wax. We're going to be adding some stenciling. Cool technique with that, I'll show you. So it's going to be primarily kind of darkish. The reason that I did the light base coat is because I want those colors to show. I want you to see the bohemian blue. And I want the lighter tones like this and the tan and the mid-tone blue where I'm using them to stand out. If I had painted them just on the black and the bohemian blue, everything would start to look super dark. We wouldn't have any of the nuances. So I talk about this a lot in terms of what's the color you want echoing up through. You know, you get some light colors blended, which means I'm not doing 2 or 3 solid coats of them over a dark color. It may only end up being 1.5. So you're gonna have that dark color echoing up. Here, because we've got this base coat on now, I'm gonna have a little bit more truer colors echoing in the colors that I'm adding on beyond this point, as opposed to going onto the black. So depending upon the look that you're after, even though you're doing 2 extra coats before the blending, it pays off if you want those colors to be able to stand out if you're starting from just simply a dark base. All right, next step in the process is I'm going to be adding a little bit of milk paint. Now, the customer, because we're going a little bit grungy and a little bit worn and old on this, they would like to see some, not necessarily chipping, but under the layers, a little bit of texture. So one of the things that we're going to try is doing some milk paint just in a bunch of the wear areas, and then letting it do its thing, getting some chips and maybe some crackle. And I'm gonna seal it so that when I go to add more paint over top, that I'm not re-engaging the milk paint so that it won't chip more. But then when I sand back, I can sand in those areas and bring up some of the texture of the milk paint. Good in theory. I've never done it before. Does it make me nervous to do it for the first time on a big honkin' expensive piano? Absolutely. Absolutely. Do I look confident? Should be okay. The worst thing that could happen is I have to sand it off and start again. The downside of that is that the moving company pickup is already scheduled. But, you know, give it a go. So I mixed up milk paint that is super thick, right? So it's not super runny. I did it super thick. I'm just doing the one coat, and I'm just doing it here and there. And I'm kind of feathering it out in spots only because I don't want it to be an abrupt stop on the piece. But this is the next step, is doing the milk paint. Not necessarily up on here. So doing the milk paint, letting it dry, hopefully getting it a little bit of crackle, and then sealing it up before we come back and we start doing more color. So I'm just gonna go and blotch that into a bunch of spots. We are at the part of the process where we are gonna start adding actual color to the piano. We're gonna be covering up all of the milk paint again. Hopefully we don't get any more chipping. I mean, it started to chip again after I added the top coat, but I was hoping the top coat will minimize what happens. What I want is to be able to see some of this texture when I sand down to it. I don't want to have tons of it happening prior to then, but you know, milk paint has a life of its own. So here's the plan. We are putting more crinoline on. Crinoline is kind of this creamy color, but we are tempering that, so that's this color, crinoline. We are balancing that out with a slightly deeper color. So you can see the sandy blonde is a deeper tan, so there'll be more of this, less of this. Then we have Pedal Pusher Blue. We're gonna have touches of a Summer Crush orange in there. We'll have a lot of Bohemian Blue, and then where we wanna darken it in the edges, we are going to have Little Black Dress, which is a black. Lots happening. We've got our spray bottle of water to be able to do a lot of blending. And as always, with a finish like this, it means I have a mess of brushes. So every time that I go to kind of feather it, I need to have a clean brush to do that. And so I'll have one brush for each color, and then I will have some extra brushes that I'll have to be cleaning and switching out when I want to do some of the blending. This is my first pass at the color. So I will be adding a light coat of all the blended colors over the entire surface, letting it dry, and then tomorrow I will come and do it again. So this gives me an idea of kind of placement and where I want more, where I want less, all that kind of fun stuff. But it all starts by starting to put some on. So that's where I'm at. I'll kind of fast forward you, and we'll go from there. Okay, the entire piano is covered in paint, but really, when I'm doing a blended finish like this, it's never just one coat and then done. So with this, what I'm at now is kind of blending into and over this. So it's not like I'm doing an entire second coat and people are saying, why the heck did you even blend the first time then? I'm blending into this finish. So I know that I want all the edging to be more of the bohemian blue. I don't want it light to light because even in some of the next steps, we're gonna age it a little bit more. We're using a lot of dark wax. We want that darker, moody kind of feel to it. So this edge to edge in light, I don't want. I need the dark to overlap. I need this to be deeper down here at the bottom, a little more intense at the top. So, you know, I'm gonna be adding in more of that blue. I'm gonna blend it into here, but where this color doesn't work for me, maybe this is too much tan in here, then I'll add in some other colors there. So I'm using this base and I'm blending into this base. That's where the water kicks in so that I can spritz it. And it means I got tons of blending brushes. I'm not gonna be dipping any of these into the paint. These are brushes that I'm gonna be using just simply on the piece to kind of start to feather in that paint a little bit more, making sure that 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 I don't have harsh stop and start lines on any of the color. Like here, this needs better blending, right? Does that make sense? So that's what I'm looking at doing, and most of it is going to kind of start with the Bohemian Blue. So I'm going to be actually grabbing a small brush so I can add a little bit to the Bohemian Blue, and then I can start to try and blend and feather it in. That's what's up for today, doing the whole piece again, adding in more color detail, and letting it dry, and tomorrow is a full day of heavy duty sanding. We've got our second layer on of our blended finish. It is now time to sand. Now, because I don't want to blow through all of the painting that I did, it means I have to hand sand the whole thing. And I'm going to be doing this with 3 goals. One is just an overall light sand, so I'm using a 220. I also have 320 down here, so I'm using a fairly fine grain of sandpaper. And I just want to knock everything back just to smooth everything out so that when I add my wax, it's going to be nice and smooth and buttery soft to the touch. The other piece is I want to distress the edges. I want it to look old, I want it to look worn. And then the third is wherever I've got all of this crackly finish from my milk paint, I want to start to sand back and expose that a little bit. So I've got 3 goals as I'm going. I just like to rip my sandpaper and wrap it around a sanding block. It just makes it easier for me. And then I'm just gonna do a nice light sand to begin with to expose some of those edges. And then just keep going and get that all done, and then get out the shop vac and dust off as much as I possibly can between the shop vac and cloths before any waxing starts. This is the fun step in the process because we get to add in our clear wax. This is our sealer that we're using, and I'm using clear wax because I'm also going to be using dark wax and black wax. But this is where we get to see the colors pop. This is where we get to see what those colors are really going to look like. And they really start coming out. So this is always the exciting part for me. I love this part because up until now, I've just had to be envisioning it in my head, what this is going to look like, what these colors are going to be. And you can see the difference that wax makes, how it starts to bring it out. I will, once I get this done, I'll bring you in closer to be able to show you how I'm using the dark wax and the black wax, but I gotta get the rest of the panel finished first. Then I'll bring you in close. this is the finished piano. Now it's actually a little bit darker, a little bit moodier than you see there because I've got big overhead lights here that they're either on or they're off. But this is the finished look. It's gonna get buffed. It hasn't been buffed yet, but I want it to dry another day just before I do that. But you can see the darker waxes here and the browns all through here. And that's one thing to keep in mind with the waxes. They can really act as shading and adding a lot of definition and distinction. I know a lot of people just do them in lows. Here we're using them across flat surfaces to create a little bit more definition. I love this piano. I'm hoping the client loves it. They really wanted a worn, aged look. I will give you some close-up pics where you can see, you know, a lot of the detail that we got with using the milk paint in perhaps a little bit of a different way. Usually you see it as the finished coat, the top coat, not an undercoat, but it gave a lot of that aged, worn crackle underneath that made it look like this has been painted over and over for generations and is a well-loved piece. Hopefully, it will continue to be well-loved with the client. Let me know what you think, guys. Hopefully, I just give you small snippets along the way because it would have been such a long video seeing any aspect of it in detail, but I really more wanted to show you the transition from that shiny gloss, high modern look to this, because anything is possible with paint. Looking forward to seeing you on the next one, and until then, guys, take care.